While most members upon the Galactic Republic served as a time of peace, with the Sith facing near extermination, also came as a breeding ground for the inner corruptions of what the Republic had. Thanks to this, it led to the overall near crumbling of its political system and its vulnerability to one man's rise of power. This man, of course, was Sheev Palpatine, who initiated the Clone Wars to turn his rise to power. However, in order to achieve this, he required many pawns in his game. Many of these pawns included both the Jedi and the Confederacy members. Two of these members being Plo Koon and General Grievous. Plo Koon was a Jedi in the Order who was in the Council and a wise member within it. He participated in the Clone Wars in 22 BBY and fought in many battles, and some of which were the most dangerous battles of the Clone Wars. He led the group known as the Wolf Pack, who went through many successful missions in the Clone Wars, including such missions as the Battle of Felucia, the rescue of Anakin and Mace Windu, the siege of General Grievous's flagship, and the rescue of Adi Gallia. Plo and the Wolf Pack had gained a reputation as some of the most bravest members of the Clone Wars due to their resiliency as well as their aggressive fighting. Thanks to this, the Wolf Pack were amongst the most respected members of the Clone Wars, with Plo Koon himself gaining a great relationship with the majority of members within the Wolf Pack. However, this did not stop Palpatine's plan to come to fruition, as thanks to the fighting of the Clone Wars, Palpatine initiated his rise to power. And while Plo Koon and the rest of the Jedi were close to undermining his plan, it was ultimately too late. Plo, as well as most of the other Jedi, were killed in 19 BBY after the initiation of Order 66 and Palpatine's rise to the galactic throne as the Emperor of the newly formed Galactic Empire. General Grievous was a Kaleesh warrior from the planet Kalee that fought in a war against the Huk. However, due to the Huk trying to enslave their race, Grievous quickly joined into the war effort to push the Huk back. Grievous was renowned as a powerful warrior and was worshipped as a demigod to his people. Grievous also had a close ally and friend who died during the conflict. During this, he mourned her loss and renamed himself Grievous. After this, Grievous tried to commit a genocide on the Huk, but was stopped by the Republic and the Jedi. Thanks to this, Kalia was put in severe debt and worked with the intergalactic banking clan to help his people. However, in order to get Grievous's permanent servitude, the banking clan sabotaged his ship and have him be rebuilt as a cyborg to get revenge on the Jedi. Grievous volunteered in many battles, first showing his appearance in the Battle of Hypori, where he engaged and defeated 5 Jedi simultaneously, setting an example upon the Republic war effort and how the Confederacy would counter them. Grievous was a renowned warrior, hunting down from the lowest of Padawans to the highest members of the Jedi Order, and collected their lightsabers as trophies. And he was quite literally Dooku's enforcer, even hunting down renegades of Dooku's former regime, where Grievous would hunt them down and not only kill them, but also massacre anyone associated with them. Grievous set the bar as he was a powerful and cunning warrior. He was even able to defeat the Sith warrior Darth Maul in a head-to-head engagement. Granted, this was under specific circumstances, but he was renowned and highly powerful, and was even powerful enough to kill Mother Talzin and finish the final blow on her. This, as a renown, made Grievous have a high reputation as a warrior, despite his cowardness nature. Including many of his feats was also the capture of Supreme Chancellor Palpatine during the Battle of Coruscant, where he engaged many Jedi on the front, with the likes of Shakti and many more, and had a brief engagement with Mace Windu during the conflict. However, Grievous, while succeeding at his mission with Palpatine, had no idea of what was to come, with later came the death of Dooku and the fall of Grievous's own personal flagship, the Invisible Hand. Grievous eventually had one final confrontation with the Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, and was slain by his hand, after having an engagement and with Grievous trying to flee in order to preserve the Separatists, though failed, and resulted in his death. However, like Plo Koon, Grievous's death fell into the Mastermind's plan, as thanks to Grievous spreading the Jedi thin, resulted in them not being able to regroup when Palpatine initiated his ultimate plans of Order 66, creating the Empire, thanks to Grievous alone being the main drive of the war effort. And thanks to this, he won. Hello YouTube! This is DumberOrange927 here, and here I'm presenting to you guys my next versus, which is Plo Koon versus General Grievous. This is a fight I've been personally really wanting to do, as I personally feel it's a fight that should have happened in TCW. Now, I just want to get one thing out of the way here. I am purposely willing to mix the continuities of canon and legends, as I am pretty much going to tie them both with TCW. And thanks to this, I will pretty much have both continuities being used here. Again, it will be tying anything with the Clone Wars, though I will keep it accessible. This means either comics that were connected to TCW regardless of their canon or not, and I am using the 2003 micro series, Clone Wars, for the portrayal of General Grievous, as personally I don't believe TCW alone has enough to portray the character in a real versus matchup, so I will be combining his portrayal in the 2003 cartoon with TCW. And if people say I can't do this because it doesn't blend either continuity, it's my channel. I can do whatever the heck I want. Not only that, but I'm perfectly wanting to get Grievous, canon Grievous justice in his portrayal in a versus video, as every other YouTuber has practically avoided using him for good reason. And not only that, but Legends Grievous, there are other YouTubers that can portray him in a versus video far better than I can. So with that out of the way, I present Plo Koon versus General Grievous. Out of these two combatants, who would win? Well, let's just find out. Physical capabilities for both combatants. Plo Koon was a Keldor Jedi who is part of the Order and was born 382 Keldor years prior to 22 BBY, making Plo Koon by estimate around the same age human years wise to around Qui-Gon Jinn, perhaps older as well. Plo Koon stood about an average height, and as well as this was physically well suited for his time, as Plo Koon was pretty agile, pretty tough. However, there was a trade-off between his traits and the trait of a normal human. Plo Koon had better agility than a normal human, but came at the expense of less durability. and he could not take as many hits as what a normal human could do. Thanks to this, Plo Koon, physically speaking, could serve as a fast, aggressive individual in a combative sense, though he was not a tank, and he could be beaten to submission if someone with enough force and enough strength and enough firepower broke through him. Plo Koon also has the weakness of the fact that without his mask, he is practically blinded and left to suffocate. Thanks to this, Plo Koon is without a doubt left vulnerable in the similar sense of what Darth Vader is, where that mask could be a big target to any adversary. General Grievous was originally a Kaleesh male who was on the planet Kalee and served as a powerful warrior. Grievous was physically well fit and well powerful, and he practically was one of the best of his people. After his cybernetic transformation, he was turned into quite literally a killing machine, where he had his metal body be made of a material that can make him combat even force-sensitive beings. This made him a martial tank, where going through anything that wasn't a Jedi would be practically a piece of cake for him. And I'm not exaggerating on that part. Grievous even was renowned for the fact that not even Obi-Wan could fight him in hand-to-hand combat. And Grievous has even been known to hold Jedi at choke grip, being able to lift them up the ground and choke a Jedi out, or worse, break their neck. This left it where Grievous quite literally was a tank. He could be shot at, he could be blown up, but it wouldn't kill him. The only big vulnerability Grievous had in a physical sense is he was vulnerable to electrical discharges that, if applied correctly, could result in his entire body being disabled. However, it is worth noting that very few people have ever exploited this weakness. However, another minor weakness of the General is while his armor is well equipped to deal with explosions and blaster fire, it has little to no resistance against lightsabers, which has resulted in the General having to constantly be repaired and reconstructed in fights that were the most brutal against the Jedi. As well as this, one of Grievous's biggest advantages against anyone was the fact that he could split his two arms into four, making it where he would have more range of options as well as this more speed and viability. Grievous overall was a renowned physical tank who really represented the iron fist of the Separatists. Thanks to this, Grievous is not one to be underestimated. Out of these two, the answer is quite simple. Grievous clearly has the physical advantage. While Plo Koon is renowned, there is nothing he has of an advantage that Grievous doesn't, not to mention Plo Koon's vulnerability. Grievous gets the edge in physical capabilities. Plo Koon was renowned in the Jedi Order to be one of the wisest members and be a naturally gifted Force wielder. He was well renowned with the capabilities of the Force, having comparable telekinesis, and was very skillful in telepath. His Force pushes and shoves were very powerful, to the extent where he could even break through the Force barriers of certain individuals, such as Asajj Ventress and Savage Opress, both of which were naturally powerful. He also has the capability to use a smaller degree of Force lightning, known as Electric Judgment, and while we haven't actually seen him apply this in actual combat as of yet, he is known to be able to use it. General Grievous served as a combatant that had no Force potential, and despite having the blood of Sifo-Dyas, he had no Force potential to work with. However, despite these weaknesses, the general made up with a numerous amounts of strength behind his ability not to use the Force but to counter it. General Grievous is renowned within his ability to counteract Jedi that use the Force, including starting with his posture of intimidating and shocking. He mostly used this as a cunning strategy to prevent Jedi from thinking about using logical tactics like using the Force against General Grievous. He applied this through shock and awe to basically posture himself to look like a machine of doom. If that didn't work, Grievous would also apply his knowledge to either evade Force attacks or to directly hit Jedi head on before they get the chance to undermine him using Force attacks against him. However, while Grievous was highly renowned with this, he was not without vulnerability, as he could easily get caught off guard by certain Force wielders that timed their attacks right, certain beings of this being high renowned within their respective Jedi and Sith order. As well as this, Grievous, while able to counteract the Force, is mostly able to do against telekinesis, and we are still not certain about how he would fare with electric judgment. However, while Grievous' psychological warfare tactics wouldn't be enough to undermine Koon effectively, fear-wise, it could be enough to undermine his tactics, which ultimately means this fight will be decided by lightsaber combat. However, for the sake of this, Plo Koon gets the edge as a Force wielder. Plo Koon was a heavy degree to Gem So specialist, who was renowned in the Order as being one of the greatest warriors during the Clone Wars. As well as this, Plo Koon was a master within Gem So and Xi'an, respectively. And knowing the fact that he is a master, we can calculatedly assume he knows other styles, including which being Makashi, since he had demonstrated the skill against Asajj Ventress when he had broken his left arm during the battle prior, and was forced to engage Ventress with only one hand, and managed to best and defeat her. Plo Koon's tactics have proven resilient, however they were not completely without vulnerability, as Plo was specialized within sticking true to his choices no matter what the situation was, meaning if he was caught off guard, it could honestly result in his end, especially when going against opponents that use unconventional tactics that do things that Koon isn't prepared for. This is precisely the reason why Savage Opress nearly killed Plo Koon by basically ripping off Plo Koon's mask when he didn't expect it. General Grievous was renowned as a powerful duelist, as he was personally trained by Count Dooku to combat even the best of the Jedi. He was more than capable with dealing with clones and non-Force sensitive beings, and he was specifically built and trained to combat Jedi. Thanks to this, Grievous was renowned as the greatest Jedi hunter during the Clone Wars, having so many victories over its highest members such as Ki-Adi-Mundi, Shaak Ti, Eth Koth, and under occasion even Kenobi himself, the one Jedi who was renowned with his ability to defeat Grievous under multiple fronts. Thanks to this, Grievous was known to have a high reputation as a Jedi killer. However, he was not without his fair share of flaws, the main one being that when the situation came out of his control, he would be forced to retreat. That's why Grievous's first response in almost any situation was shock and intimidate. And when also put in situations that he did not have these things on his side, such as when he was in enclosed areas, he was remotely vulnerable against Jedi. As well as this, certain Jedi that had skill sets such as Surisu, Ataru, or Shi-Cho were more than capable of combating Grievous, as he had different ways of engaging his enemies. He used the two-blade style to employ tactics within both enclosed areas and when he is relying more on defense with heavy blows of counter, while he relied more on the four blades when he wanted to overwhelm his enemies quickly and decisively with high speed, ferocity, and power. These shared tactics were something that made Grievous a renowned force against his enemies, as he was able to push most of his opposition back before they even got a chance to be able to examine what the general knew and what he did not. However, while Grievous was highly renowned in his skill sets, another vulnerability that he did have was that he could get blindly arrogant. In one way, it was beneficial to him, as he could use it to help him in psychological warfare tactics, and he also used it to undermine the opponent's defense. But on the other, it could leave him to make reckless and stupid decisions that could lead to his downfall, and has honestly led to many of the general's defeats. However, despite these weaknesses, the general is more than capable and is definitely a threat and a well-challenging opponent to any master of the Jedi Order. Honestly, this contest is really one that's both simple but complex. Plo Koon has the ingredients to defeat Grievous, but I just don't think Plo can overwhelm Grievous, simply because Plo is too much of a dedicated person to his own tactics, and he is unwilling to alter his styles of improvisation, which is something that is horrible against an opponent like Grievous. Grievous as a whole isn't perfect, but he is definitely powerful enough to defeat Plo with lightsaber combat. And honestly, I feel the weaknesses of Grievous are far less than Plo's. Grievous gets the edge as a lightsaber duelist. Equipment. Plo Koon had a very standard hilt lightsaber that was amongst a basic weapon for the Jedi Order. It was highly standardized and very basic and textbook within its design. It carried a blue Adagan crystal as the focusing lens, and honestly, unless you count the familiarity Plo Koon will have with his own weapon, really provides him no strategic advantage over any other Jedi out there. General Grievous carried a multiple of lightsabers in his collection, with at least 4 he carried with him. These were usually amongst the lines of 2 blues and 2 greens, all made out of Adagan kyber crystals. However, these lightsabers for the most part were also standardized, but Grievous carried a huge variety of them, and also had a blaster pistol often at times. This contest is pretty obvious. Grievous not only has the advantage of quantity over Plo, as he carries at least 4 lightsabers, but as well as this, Grievous has the blaster pistol. Grievous gets the edge in armament. And now, the verdict. Honestly, this contest is pretty simple when it comes down to it. And honestly, I feel you people know where I'm leaning towards at this. Plo Koon, I don't believe, can defeat Grievous. And it's not because I have any negative bias towards him. Far from it. Plo Koon is one of my favorite Jedi in the Clone Wars era. However, I feel that despite everything Plo has, is simply not enough to take down Grievous. Grievous may be flawed in the sense that he is arrogant, not force sensitive, and as a whole, he is still just a machine with lightsabers. But at least Grievous has variety, and he has the unconventional tactics at his side, which is something honestly Plo Koon isn't going to be prepared for, as Plo expects everything to go according to what he has planned, and when anything is out of place, he is easily caught off guard by it. Yes, it is possible that Plo, if he applied all the skills he has correctly and actually learned to alter his tactics, then victory over Grievous would be not only possible but highly likely for the Jedi. But unfortunately, I do not see this as the most likely outcome, as Plo is just overall stubborn to change up his tactics because he trusts his own wisdom and the will of the Force too much to ever change up anything. Grievous, on the other hand, doesn't. And while I do say it is somewhat sad that Grievous will cower in fear when he knows defeat is imminent, he is at least willing to take the battle to a new environment where he can rearrange his tactics and at least personify what he has up next. Grievous isn't perfect, but he is more than capable than dealing with Jedi Masters. And simply put, I feel Plo doesn't have enough to take down Grievous. How I see this fight playing out would be almost solely a lightsaber duel. This duel would progress where they would be evenly matched for a short period of time, as Plo Koon's Djem So is definitely comparable to defend against Grievous's free multi-styles, where Grievous can use degrees of 9-man as well as Juyo mixed with almost every style there is. Grievous is a free-for-all, but Plo Koon would recognize most of the styles to be able to defend off against him. However, all these efforts wouldn't last, as Grievous would eventually ramp up his intensity and start randomizing his attack patterns, which would be something Plo wouldn't be capable of dealing with, or at least would have trouble dealing with. This combined with the fact that Grievous would eventually switch the quad blade and also use the physical attacks, I feel Plo Koon wouldn't be able to hold. Don't get me wrong, I think Plo Koon can definitely handle Grievous's dual blade style, as his experience against both Ventress and Savage have been enough for Plo to get familiar with that. Even against Grievous's quad blade style, I feel Plo could definitely hold for a time, but that's the problem. He is only delaying the inevitable, and while I do believe Plo has a chance in defeating Grievous if he uses all his tools right, I just simply don't think Plo would realize he has to change things up until it's too late, especially with Grievous pretty much altering his tricks and tactics, and that's what it's going to happen. As soon as Grievous starts altering his approach to combat and rearranging the engagement to his control, Grievous would simply put Plo Koon in a trap position that he cannot get out of. And once when Grievous ramps up his own intensity, Plo would simply be defending till Grievous slices him down. Eventually, Grievous would ramp up the power with physical strikes and lightsaber hits fast enough to break Plo's guard, and after that, in a heartbeat, Plo would have his mask ripped out, be sliced to ribbons, and General Grievous would have a new Master's lightsaber to add to his collection. I declare General Grievous the victor.